The debate of the world's first slasher movie has been waged on for decades. Was it 1974's Black Christmas, directed by Bob Clark, that put us in the killer's point of view and left red herrings all over the place? Or was it John Carpenter's 1978 genre-defining classic, Halloween, that introduced us to the masked killer, stacked the body count, and killed off several sexually promiscuous teenagers? Was it both of those movies? Was it neither one? My answer to that question? Who cares? All slasher movies were derivative of Italian giallo films that dated back to the late 1950s. These movies were inspired by dime store detective novels, they all had a huge stack of dead bodies, and they all had a mysterious killer on the loose. Sound familiar? No giallo movie, however, was more brutal, more twisted, more imaginative, or more impactful than the subject of today's HORRORGASMO review. Mario Bava's 1971 classic, A Bay of Blood, or Twitch of the Death Nerve, or Carnage, or whatever you want to call it. Our story starts out in a large mansion situated on a beautifully forested lake. The owner of the house, the Countess Frederica Donati, is being shown strangled to death by her eager husband, Filippo Donati. Out of the blue, Filippo is stabbed to death by an unknown assailant who leaves a suicide note written by the Countess and starts dragging Filippo's body to the bay. Cut to the scene where two new characters are introduced, Frank Ventura and Laura, who are doing the dirty. And we learn that Frank Ventura is a real estate mogul who set up a plot for Filippo to murder the Countess so that he, as in Frank, could purchase the mansion and start a sprawling real estate empire. What Frank and Laura don't know, however, is that Filippo was slaughtered that night, kind of putting a damper on the plans as Frank Ventura kinda needed Filippo's signature on some documents so that he could legally buy the house. Sucks to suck. So far, there's far too much plot in the movie and not nearly enough sex or violence, so we're introduced to 4 teenagers whose sole purpose is to up the body count, who are exploring the grounds because of the recent media coverage of the spooky murders. We know that these teenagers aren't gonna last long because in the Italian tradition, teenagers are only good for 2 things: showing skin and losing skin. One by one, or in some cases 2 by 2, the teenagers start getting kills off by an assailant who we find out is Simon, the illegitimate love child of the Countess. One of the kills would be recreated 9 years later in a small, tiny little B-movie that you might have heard of called Friday the 13th Part 2. Enter Filippo's estranged daughter Renata and her husband Albert and their 2 kids who are being told to, hey, wait in the RV for a week. Mom and Dad are gonna try and steal this place for their own. Simon, Frank Ventura, and Laura be damned. Also, somewhere in this forest, there's like a kooky bug scientist and his crazy witchy wife, and you know what? The plot doesn't matter, so I'm not gonna really spoil anything for you guys. All you really need to know is there's a whole lot more murders that are about to take place, and we still don't know who killed Filippo. It's madness! Don't look for any deeper meanings in A Bay of Blood, because you won't find any. This movie was made for one reason, and that reason is sex and gore sell. Hell, Mario Bava didn't even bother penning a script for this. What he did was he created 13 murder sequences and then figured out how to place them together. This is the sole reason why I say Bay of Blood is the biggest inspiration to slasher movies. Most of these movies were so over the top with blood and tits that they really didn't need a plot to find an audience. People, somewhere deep inside their psyche, are bloodthirsty and horny. Thus, sex and violence sell. With this picture, Mario Bava, who was already a legend in the horror community for creating such Eurogoth treasures as Black Sabbath, Black Sunday, and The Whip and the Body, wrote the instructions on how to breed a whole new cash cow. To be frank, I think this movie is one of the stupidest movies ever made, and I absolutely love it. It sank to new levels of depravity never set to film before. It's reported that when quintessential Dracula Christopher Lee saw this movie, he was revolted by it. And this is the same guy who would go on to star in Star Wars Episode 2, so if he was sick by it, there must be some merit to the brutality. If you have any interest in film history whatsoever, I highly recommend you go pick up a copy of A Bay of Blood or Chain Reaction, or one of the 300 titles that this movie has. If you've seen any slasher movie at all, you'll know that they ripped this one off. Rizzo gives this movie 9 ghost emojis out of a potential 10. Yes, I think the movie was that influential and that ahead of its time that it is damn near a masterpiece in how shitty it is. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode of the HORRORGASMO review. Please, if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of A Bay of Blood, or recommend me a movie to review. If I like it, who knows, maybe I'll actually listen to you. Drink beer, pet a cat, hail Satan. Mwah, toodles.
Hi, it's me, Sylvia next. Be sure and follow me on Instagram.
What are you doing?
That's how you sound.
That is not how I sound.
You totally sound like that.
No, I don't.
Well, follow her anyways. Bye.